Hey everybody, it's Gavin Seim, and welcome to the live show. It is February 25th, 2022, and the world has gotten really, really crazy this week, in a bad way as usual. And I was actually getting ready for the show, and I went over to my own channel to go set up this video. And I saw a video that I posted on February 12th. So what was that, 2 weeks ago? And it was just a short video that I did on my YouTube Shorts channel, and it's 1 minute long. I'm going to play that with you because this is what I said 2 weeks ago as we saw like Canada resisting and we saw more and more people starting to question this stuff, right? And so now the politicians are shifting like, oh, well, the science is changing now, and we think that it's probably, and we're like, shut up. We already are doing that. Because it's just unbelievable. These crooked politicians and they're whores that pretend that they're medical experts and that they're keeping communities safe, and they really just work for the political elite. And it's sad to see that, but we keep plugging away. I want to show you this video. Let me actually switch to the screen real quick here and play this 1 minute clip, all right?
So wow, people across the world are kind of questioning things. And
this was 2 weeks ago.
I'm not sure the politicians actually know everything, and that's bad for the politicians. With the current narrative starting to be questioned around the world, the politicians are going to need something new to divide us on and to control us on. That's probably going to mean they need a new terrorist. So if you're one of the outliers or the groups or the people of color, you might want to watch out, because our U.S. terrorist state, that's what we do to create world division, is our politicians come together. They create a terrorist, sometimes literally by actually funding the terror groups, and then they say that we have to stop the bad guys, we have to stop the terror, and then they divide us against each other, so one group is fighting against the other, and how and when and where we stop the terror. And in doing so, the politicians get away with absolutely anything. That's how we roll. Cuidado.
So, I hadn't even thought of that video today, and I went back and saw it, and I thought, well, maybe it's not the minority group that's now the terrorist. Maybe it's Russia. And I'm sitting here thinking, I wonder if the U.S. behind the scenes, like they're always doing, because the U.S. loves a distraction. Wonder what the involvement of the CIA is in what's going on with Russia attacking Ukraine. I wonder if we're actually funneling in behind the scenes and saying, yeah, while we pretend on the front end, oh, this is terrible, we can't believe this is happening, which is what normal people are thinking. Trail, do you think the mess in Ukraine is rooted in the coup of 2014 in the U.S. financed it? I think that I'm not going to claim at any point here to be an expert on Ukraine versus Russia. It seems like a complicated situation. And we've seen for years these kind of skirmishes and conflicts between Ukraine and Russia saying, oh, it's going to blow up, it's going to blow up. But what I'm seeing Russia do this week, and I don't even really understand a clear narrative. You'd think if Russia was going to attack their neighbors, it's not like Russia is some people living in the desert sand somewhere that no one's ever seen before, covering their faces with cloth and doing videos to upload to the internet. We're talking about Russia here. This is a serious situation. And there's a lot of jokes and memes and all these things we can make, but I don't want to do that because people are dying. As I'm looking at this and we're seeing a blatant invasion, and I've told you this in my law category on this channel, in my human rights, when you invade the rights of another, we always have these soldiers and we're like, oh, our soldiers are protecting freedom. How's Russia protecting freedom? By raping Ukraine? Anyone want to tell me that? It's no different than when the U.S. soldiers, and we're from that country, right? So we pretend they're heroes. When the U.S. soldiers are violating the Arab nations, when they're invading for oil and power, and that's really what this is about. We may not know yet what's going on. And we can get stuck on, oh, this happened 10 years ago. This happened in 2014. This is what's really going on. And there's certainly people that study this, but you don't need a conspiracy theory to know what's going on, because it's always the same story. The politicians switch from one narrative to another to gain power and control, to steal, to kill, to destroy, and to enslave the poor. And it's always the same. And so we're seeing, obviously, I don't know a lot about Ukraine. I'm sure their president and their politicians are corrupt as well. But you know what? It is interesting because on the surface, at least, if you go to the Facebook, for example, right? You're seeing
Good evening, everyone.
the Ukrainian
The leader of the
president.
faction is here. The head of the president's administration is here.
They're on the street with the soldiers. You see the people, right, in these videos. You see the grandmothers arming up to defend their communities. And what's the world seeing of the elite and the politicians that are protecting us? What are they always saying? Oh, well, you got to take the guns. We can't have people having guns. There's too much violence. The government. This reinforces once again that the government is always the violators of rights. They're always the ones who are the least qualified. These Russian soldiers who are invading the lands and violating and murdering other people because some fool politician told them to. Or maybe not a fool, maybe just pure evil on the part of Vladimir Putin. But they're not excused. You don't get to say, I'm just following orders. I don't care if you're from the US or Ukraine or China. If you, with your fists, with your arms, with your guns, violate the right of another, you deserve to be resisted with equal and opposite force. And you get what you deserve because you're no different. The Russian soldiers are the same as any common murderer right now, from what we can tell, because as far as I can tell, the Russian soldiers aren't defending their homes. No one violated them. This is simply a play. And what's weird to me that I'm not seeing, and maybe someone can send me a link, what I'm not seeing is a narrative, right? The US is always invading and murdering and killing and stealing. But what we do is we create a terrorist and a narrative. And obviously this fits in with the US politicians' plan because there's a world-seeing distraction now to shift gears from where we've been for the past 2 years into the new terror, blood, and death. Because terror, blood, and death is how you control the plebs. And that's what's happening. So you know there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we're not seeing. But where's the narrative for invading their neighbors and for murdering innocents? Where are we going with this? I'm not going to pretend to make some grand, wild predictions. I'm just disgusted at the constant violence. And everyone, right? Everyone from their faction cheers the violence against others because we always justify the violence against others. But violence against others is never justified unless it's in defense of yours, or even more so of someone else's right to life, liberty, and property. So it doesn't matter the position or who is doing the violation, how high they are. It doesn't matter if they're the king or if they're Putin or if they're Trump or if they're Obama or Bush or Biden. They're all criminals. They're all criminals doing the bidding of their factions for power, for oil, for money. And everyone's always making excuse for their politician. Oh, if Trump was in, this wouldn't be happening. Oh, if so-and-so was here. Oh, if so-and-so was here. Oh, this would never happen if I was in office. It's nonsense because every one of these fascists, when they get in power, they're doing the same fascism. It's just against the other faction that they don't like. Chivos Adventures, muchas gracias for the super chat, for the tacos. 20 tacos. Bring that down. So I see a lot of comments in here, and I'm not saying they're all right or they're all wrong, but what I am saying is that if we stay focused, and I've always said it's so easy to get caught up in conspiracies and this is happening, or it's happening because of this, or this is who's really behind it. And there's nothing wrong with doing research and being informed and being educated. But sometimes I think we go too far with that, because it's actually easier to sound intelligent by putting out some grand theory. It's much easier to put out a theory than it is to go out and defend the innocent. Now, I'm not saying that the U.S. should be over there interfering in Ukraine, but the allies, where are the allies of Ukraine that are their next door neighbors? That's what I would have to ask, right? Where's their allies helping them? Because it seems like it's kind of a situation where Ukraine is kind of standing alone, or at least it's being portrayed that way. Now, we're dealing with very high-level politicians on both sides. Let's not pretend that the president of Ukraine is some underdog activist, right? This is the president of the country. So we're obviously seeing narratives, but I don't see a way around the narrative that the fact is that Russia is invading the rights, the liberties, and the lands of another by force, murdering, killing, and violating their rights. And that's really what the question. You guys know on this channel, I always like to keep it down to the simple, fundamental question. Are rights being defended? Is the so-called defender violating the rights or protecting them? The defender says, we want to keep you safe by taking guns. And I'm like, no, you don't. You're a terrorist. You want to control people by you being the only one that has the guns. The defender says, we want to keep you safe by making you take the health measures that we want you to take. I say, no, you're not. You're a terrorist trying to control people and seeing how much you can get away with. You see, the politicians and the elite and the factions, they're always trying to gain power for them and their group and their faction, whatever that may be. So keep it simple. The question is this. Look at person A, B, and C. Are A, B, and C violating the life, the liberty, and the property? You don't need a constitution for these rights to exist. Your right to your life, your liberty, and your property is inherent. It's natural. It's God-given. It's yours. And the government is constantly, in every country on earth, making laws, statutes that violate the most basic and fundamental laws of humankind. And we see it constantly. And it's always at the expense of the poor, the weak, the fatherless, and the widow. They're the ones that pay the most worldwide for thousands of years, because people refuse to throw aside faction and stand up and love their neighbor like Jesus did and say, no, I'm not out for vengeance. I'm not out to punish. I'm out to stand up for the innocent. And that's what people should be doing. And they're not. And so, as I look back on this video I did just a few weeks ago saying, there's a new distraction coming. We don't know what it'll be, but there's a new distraction coming because they have to shift gears. And here we are 2 weeks later. And we have the implication. Now, we don't know if this will happen, this could already all be planned behind the scenes, and in a week they'll fizzle out. But how many lives will be lost in the meantime? How many of the cannon fodder will be thrown into the machine to make the narrative? Or, as people say, because we love to sensationalize, we love a good story, well, this is World War III. Well, we'll see. That's a possibility. I can't say you're wrong, but I try not to hypothesize too much to make myself sound like I really know so much, because I don't really know so much. I just know that people's rights are what we need to focus on. We need to keep our eye on the ball. And to be perfectly honest, I can pray, I can speak out here, but I don't know what to do to help Ukraine. I don't even know for sure what's happening, because I don't know how much of the media is being manipulated and controlled, although it seems like we're getting more or less information. It's pretty clear that Russia is clearly the terrorists. And so, yeah, there's a new terrorist in town. What's the government going to do about it? But more importantly, how are the governments of the world going to profit with the freedoms they will take to stop the bad guy? How is your government going to profit with the weapons and the machinery and the propaganda that they will sell? Maybe even to the bad guy that they're claiming they want to stop. And how much more of your freedoms will you do because you and the people around you won't say, no, your narratives are not taking away our freedoms. Because inevitably, when people are in fear, they tend to believe the propaganda, the patriotism gear gets cranked into high, and everybody says, no, we have to defend. All of a sudden, the narratives, Canada, did the protests just disappear and everyone went home? Is Canada now, the terrorist government of Trudeau, going to go after all those people like they did the natives at Standing Rock? Like they did the Bundys? Like they did Schaefer Cox and Jeff Winehouse? Are they going to go all now while we're distracted and go start arresting and imprisoning all the dissidents? Is that what it's really about? Is so they can shift gears, save face for the resistance that we've started to see bubbling up because people are fed up of the past 2 years of being lied to? And so they need a big distraction to take all the focus away. So yes, this needs to stop. Ukraine, it's good to see people defending themselves. If that's what's actually happening, these people are stepping up to stand against Russia terrorizing their country and protect their families. That's amazing. And I stand with them and pray for them. And here I am, trying to understand what's going on from across the world, but also not to throw out a conspiracy, but pay attention to the little stories in the next couple weeks. Because inevitably, whenever this huge thing, this huge new thing that everyone's talking about is here, over here, dissidents are being rounded up. Over here, manipulations are being made. Over here, profit is being made. This is how our terrorist governments work because they don't defend our rights. The police don't protect us and keep our communities safe. They're the same as the soldiers that are murdering Ukrainians. The uniforms help complete the distraction under the guise of keeping you safe. And if you resist, they kill you. Have you noticed that the narrative seems the same all across the world? It's because history keeps repeating. Well, that's what I've got for tonight, you guys. And yeah, I think we're going to close this out for now. It's been good chatting to you. Thank you to our super chatters. And we will see you all on the next show. I'm Gavin Seim. Make sure you hit that like, that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you can get notified when I'm live because there's pre-show and after show when I do the live. And we have fun in those. We'll see you guys next time.